Hey guys, Brandon here with yet another video, hoping that it inspires, encourages, and motivates you to stand up for what's right in this country. I have a number of different videos that deal with various topics that I feel are important to keep in your back pocket, especially when you're out there trying to make a dent in the cultural conversation. I also go live every Monday at 12 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time with a panel of patriots, and we dive into the important topics that impact us all. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join the Brando on the Go family. Today's topic may come across as irrelevant and possibly even distasteful for a lot of you. But believe me, I wouldn't spend the time editing these videos with topics I didn't feel were important. So at the very least, please bear with me and hear me out as I talk about some important aspects of the fight we're up against in this country and in this world. So let me be straight to the point. It's about religion. As much as it may seem like an insignificant topic for a lot of you freedom fighters out there, I read your comments and a lot of you say leave God out of it or keep your faith to yourself. Believe me, I'm the first one to critique any sort of religious agenda pushed by any person or group whose intentions are in the wrong place. But let me be clear, I think it's not only significant to talk about the spiritual side of things, but it's very important that we have a full, solid perspective on our side. This way, our position is unshakable and can be openly critiqued without fear. And this comes by pushing away the icky feelings we have when it comes to religion. I totally get it. The religious debates we've all had for centuries have amounted to division, hatred, acts of violence, and some of the most evil things we've witnessed as a human race. But the reality is, and to borrow an old saying, we often are too quick to throw the baby out with the bathwater. In other words, yes, religion has been used and abused by men and women for centuries, and it's disgusting that it's still used in the same way today, but let's not throw away the baby. There's this precious thing that we have to hold on to and talk about. Otherwise, we're faced with an enemy that we have no idea how to defeat. First of all, evil happens within religion and on the outside of religion all the time. So refusing any kind of acceptance of religious perspectives is ignorant in the sense that both sides are guilty of evil. That's just the reality, probably because both sides are human. Just a guess. But let's take a couple of steps back. In relation to the fight for freedom in Canada, defending our constitutional rights, what kind of battle is this? Is it physical? Well, with the way the police behaved in Ottawa during the trucker protest, you would think so. But the truckers didn't fight back. No one did. In fact, almost everyone you talked to that was in Ottawa during that time, they said the atmosphere amongst the people was that of joy and love. But despite all that, the government decided to give itself a big black eye when they decided it was the right thing to do to beat up veterans and peaceful, law-abiding citizens in the capital of their own country. So if this isn't a physical battle, is it psychological? Absolutely. What our government is great at, and they have the help of the legacy media to do this, is that they're good at controlling the narrative. This means despite it being a sunny day outside, they have the tools to make a massive amount of unsuspecting people believe that there's a thunderstorm outside. The only thing I know to do to combat this is to equip myself with the truth and influence the people within arm's reach. And that's what I do on this channel. And this is what we all should be doing, going to our rallies, engaging thoughtful and respectful dialogue. One by one, we can move the needle in this country's dialogue, and we just gotta keep the momentum going. So that's the psychological part of it. But what happens when these people that we're up against overstep from the psychological manipulation to doing and speaking literal evil? I'm talking lies that are undeniably false, where it's literally in your face, in the broad of daylight, and no one seems to hold them accountable. For example, Justin Trudeau describing people like myself.
When we look at the prevalence of misinformation, of disinformation, the way social media has been weaponized both by foreign actors and by people within Canada pushing extremist views, trying to foment anger and discord, whether it's extremist ideology and right-wing terrorism on the rise in Canada, or whether it's examples like the illegal protests we saw in the winter.
How about the physical and emotional damage they knowingly cause by spreading false things that aren't supported by the science? And of course, there's historian Noah Harari from the WEF.
We don't have to wait until Christ's second coming in order to overcome death. A couple of geeks in a laboratory can do it, if you give them enough time and money.
You have a lovely passage where you say, looking at the world today, God seems to be making a comeback, but this is a mirage. God is dead. It just takes a while to get rid of the body.
I don't think life has any meaning. So in that sense, it's not a strong counter-argument. I know that many religions and philosophies have based the meaning of life on death and what happens after death, but I think these are all fictional stories that people have invented through history. They are not the truth. Throughout history, death was kind of the great equalizer. I mean, the poor people always told themselves, say in the Middle Ages, yes, now these rich people, they have all the good things in life, but they will die in the end, at least that. Just think what it means to be a poor person in a world when you die, but the rich continue to live young and beautiful forever. I mean, it's a cause for a lot of anger. You think about the Bible, for example. So in the first book of Genesis, what God does is to create animals and plants and humans, and we now want to gain this ability to ourselves, to manufacture animals and plants and humans. And we even go beyond God. I mean, even if you believe in the Bible, the only thing the God of the Bible managed to create is organic beings. He managed to create the cows and the tomatoes and the giraffes and the humans, all organic. Now we try to go beyond the God of the Bible and create inorganic life, something he never managed to do, either according to the Bible or according to biology. For 4 billion years, all of life was organic, and now we want to create inorganic life. That's really, divinity is not far enough to describe what we are trying to do.
Anybody know where this guy got his historian education from? Because I'm pretty sure, according to the Bible, and a little kid would understand this, is that God created animals, tomatoes, and the universe itself from nothing. I don't know about you, but I don't know how to make a tomato using no ingredients. You ever look at the human eyeball? Over 131 million light-sensing cells. Yeah, try making one of those with your computers, bud. Oh, and make sure that you're using nothing to create it. I could sit here and rebut a lot of his points, playing the psychological game over and over, but there comes a point in this fight for truth that we have to stop and say, this fight has a spiritual side to it. We have to remember, evil isn't a physical thing. I can't hold evil. It's not a thing I can throw around the room or cut in half with a knife. It's a lot like love, but the opposite. Remember when I said the atmosphere in Ottawa was described as love? There were grown adults getting interviewed and crying, not knowing why they were crying. To me, that was evidence of an invisible spiritual attribute called love. It was beautiful, and I think that was one of the things that attracted so many people to that city during those weeks. It was the reason that no one responded in violence, because they were consumed in this love, whether it was love for their country, their fellow man, or their families. I draw this conclusion to highlight the opposite side of this, because I believe these people we're up against, in the same way, they're consumed by evil. This is why rationality escapes them. This is why their perspectives can't be questioned. It's why Justin Trudeau couldn't face the truckers. It's also why the weight of the lies falls so heavy on people who don't recognize the spiritual side of this. And I'm telling you, you have to fight with spiritual weapons in a spiritual war. Otherwise, you're going to boil up and lash out in anger that will sink our mission down in the opposite direction. But let's pause and clarify. Spiritual weapons? That sounds a little nutty, Brando. Okay, well, here's another word for you. Prayer. It's a direct line from the big man himself to us. We don't need the fancy ceremonies or the props to summon anything. We don't need a priest. We don't need to jump through any hoops to call on the name of God. And what a lot of people don't understand is that God isn't this crooked religion looking to make money off people. He's not this butler in the sky that will come running when you click your fingers either. That's what man has made God to be. And what I want to do next is explain something in a way that even a child could understand, and maybe something you've never heard or understood before. Most times, people have bits and pieces of religion, but it can cause confusion and keep us from having a solid grasp of it. I think if you can grasp it, it'll change your heart and mind in the way you view not only religion, but God himself. And it goes like this. Religion is man's attempt to reach God, but the God of the Bible is God's attempt to reach man. For example, some religions, even those involved in Christianity, believe we have to do and say certain things in order to please God. Whether it's wearing certain clothing, laying on a bed of nails, saying certain prayers, and I'll go as far as to say attending church every Sunday. In some form, every religion has had people who believe that they have to step out and do something to earn God's favor. But that's not what the Bible teaches. This is what it teaches. You and I are guilty criminals when measured up to God's perfect standard of goodness. There's no one amongst us who is righteous or does good. We do good according to our standards. We wash the dishes, we pay our taxes, and act for the common good of society, but the good I'm talking about here is moral excellence. I know I haven't been morally excellent in my life. I've lied, I've stolen, I've used God's name as a replacement for a cuss word. Jesus said if you look with lust, you commit adultery in your heart. That's just 4 of the 10 commandments, and I'm sure I've broken all of them. Now, is this meant to put me down and make me feel awful? No, it's to dismantle my self-righteousness, to take what I think the definition of good is and throw it away. Jesus does this in the book of Mark chapter 10, verse 17. A rich young ruler comes to Jesus. He kneels down before him and says, "Good teacher, what must I do to gain eternal life?" And you know what Jesus does? He rebukes him. He says, "Why do you call me good? Only God is good." And then he proceeds to dismantle this young man's idea of what good means to God. And he did this to humble the young man's heart. Because if we're not humble, if we're already good, then there was no need for Jesus. His excruciating death on the cross was for nothing if we don't need God. In other words, a patient will never appreciate, let alone receive a cure, if they don't first understand their disease. Our disease is sin. That's what separates us from God. And the beautiful thing is that this cure, it was Jesus' blood shed on the cross. You and I broke God's law, we're sentenced for life in prison, a life separated from God, which is described as hell. Jesus walked in and paid the fine in his life's blood. Today, a judge can let you walk when someone pays your fine, and that's exactly what happened. This means you don't try to save yourself, you don't try to earn God's love by doing good things. No, instead, your motivation to do good is completely different. You do good because you're thankful to God. You don't obey Him because you have to. You obey Him because you love Him. You know, people that have lost friends in war, oftentimes when their friends give their lives to defend each other, the survivors usually live a bit differently. They have a new sense of gratitude because they know a great sacrifice was done on their behalf. It's not a burden for them. It's an honor. It's the same way with God. So let's bring this back to us here in Canada. First of all, freedom of religion is one of our fundamental rights that we're fighting for. It's in our Constitution. We want people to have the free will to choose when and where to worship. So that alone makes it worth talking about. Not only that, but we've seen and heard about the ones who have been punished for exercising these freedoms. A great example is Pastor Arthur Pawlowski, who was arrested many times for violating so-called public health rules. So think about that. We talk a lot on this channel about people who boldly step out and stand on their charter rights. People like Jeff McCoy over at Veracity Phantom, where he jumped in his car without a vaccine passport and crossed the Canada-US border to see his daughter. By the way, go support that guy. He's a true patriot. But here we have Pastor Arthur standing on his fundamental right to practice his religion, and he's dragged away and locked up like an animal. I'm going to link his story in the description of this video so you can really understand how gross our own government treated this peaceful, freedom-loving Canadian. It was truly disgusting. Anyways, I hope this video at the very least has caused you to start thinking about this battle in full surround sound. Yes, it's important to engage in politics, have our voices heard, and like I said, encourage one another with good dialogue, but we can't ignore the fact that a large part of the battle is spiritual. They're using spiritual warfare against us and they're not ashamed of it, so we need to as well. Put aside your icky feelings about religion, hold on to this baby, get rid of the dirty bathwater of religion, and keep your feet firmly planted where you know is right. And I'll leave you with this. God is, first of all, real. He knows what's going on, He's willing to act, and He's looking for people who are willing to be used by Him. And I'm not saying you have to get your life in perfect shape for that to happen, because it won't. We're all a mess. But all God wants is your heart. The rest will follow. You give Him that much, and little by little, He'll teach you to love that which is right. Your heart will learn to despise sin. It won't be a burden. The minute religion becomes a burden for you, it means your perspective isn't right. Jesus said, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." I hope this video was encouraging. I know it's a bit different than the usual subjects I talk about, but I'm here to lift people up and fix our aim on things that will make an impact. Thanks so much for watching. Stick to your guns, never stop praying, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, if you enjoy my content, would you do me a favor and just hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe? The algorithm loves it and it pushes my videos out there. I'd appreciate that. You guys, thanks so much. Take care.